Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really radical idea that completely flipped a core concept of ancient faith. We're talking about the temple and how the New Testament writers totally reimagined it. So let's start with this question, because it gets right to the heart of what the New Testament is talking about. It's a question that challenges centuries of tradition and asks us to think completely differently about sacred space.
And believe it or not, this is the exact claim they made. It's this revolutionary idea that the dwelling place of God shifts from a place to a person, and then, and this is key, from that one person to an entire people.
Now, to really feel the weight of that shift, we have to rewind a little bit. We need to look at the original blueprint for God's dwelling place, an idea that goes all the way back to the beginning of the Old Testament. The core idea is actually pretty simple, but it's also incredibly profound. It's all about God dwelling with his people. The temple was the physical symbol of that promise, the one spot where heaven and earth were understood to meet. And you can see this idea of God's presence evolve over time. It starts in the Garden of Eden, right? A place of direct communion. After the exile from the garden, it becomes the tabernacle, basically a mobile sanctuary for a nation on the move. And then, finally, it climaxes with Solomon's incredible temple in Jerusalem, a permanent, stunning symbol of God's presence. But then the story takes a huge, dramatic turn. The New Testament comes on the scene and introduces a wild new idea. The center of God's presence is no longer a building of stone, but a person of flesh and blood. Yeah, the argument the New Testament writers make is that Jesus is the new temple. He actually embodies the presence of God on earth, fulfilling the whole purpose of that sacred space in his own person. The book of Hebrews just explains this so brilliantly. It presents Jesus as both the ultimate high priest, the one person who could enter God's presence for everyone else, and as the new sanctuary itself. He enters a tabernacle not made with human hands. In one single act, he basically replaces the entire system of physical temples and sacrifices. Okay, but here's where it gets even more interesting. The story doesn't just stop with Jesus. The idea gets even bigger, expanding to include all of his followers. This is where we see a brand new kind of temple emerge, one made of people. I mean, this is a complete 180. What was once a fixed building in one city becomes a global community. Physical sacrifices are replaced by spiritual ones, and a structure built by human hands is replaced by one built by God himself. It's a total paradigm shift. The Apostle Paul makes this absolutely astonishing claim directly to the believers in the city of Corinth. And he's not just using a nice metaphor here, he's making a huge theological statement. But to really truly get it, we have to look at one crucial little detail that's so easy to miss. And here it is. This is the key that unlocks the whole thing, a tiny detail that's often lost when we read it in English. In the original Greek language, the word you in that verse, it's plural. So think about what that means. Paul isn't making some individualistic statement about personal health or holiness. It's a corporate statement. He's looking at the entire Corinthian church and saying that together, as a community, you all are God's temple. So it's not my body as a temple, it's we together are the temple. And what's really cool is this isn't just some one-off idea from Paul. This concept of a living temple is like an architectural theme that's woven all through the New Testament. You have different writers all using the same building metaphor to describe the church, and they give us a pretty clear blueprint for it. The foundation is the teaching of the apostles and prophets, Jesus is the crucial cornerstone holding it all together, and individual believers are like the living stones that make up the actual structure. In his letter to the Ephesians, Paul uses this image to talk about radical inclusion. He pictures this one amazing spiritual building where Jews and Gentiles, people who were once totally divided, are now brought together as one, all held securely by Jesus, the cornerstone. And it's not just Paul. Over in his letter, Peter uses almost the exact same language. He calls believers living stones who are being built into a spiritual house. Just think about that. They're not just visitors to the temple, they are the temple. Each person is part of the structure. Okay, so this brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. It's this idea that theologians sometimes call already but not yet. It basically means that this new temple is a real thing right now, but it's also pointing forward to something even greater in the future. So when people wonder if a third temple will be built in Jerusalem, the New Testament's answer is a resounding yes. In fact, It says it's already here. The prophecies about a restored temple find their fulfillment not in another stone building, but in this global community of believers. This community, this one new humanity made up of all kinds of people, is the single unified temple where God's Spirit dwells today. But, and this is important, this is just a glimpse of what's to come. The whole story is pointing toward an ultimate future, which the book of Revelation describes as a new creation, where God dwells with his people perfectly and forever. So this whole radical reimagining of the temple leaves us with a pretty powerful question to chew on. If God's presence is found most truly not in a building, but in a community, then what does it mean for each of us to be a living stone inside of it? How does that change how we see ourselves, how we see each other, and our purpose in the world? It's a question that has the power to change everything.